most times with your opt-in page, one of the more important rules is one of the more important rules of business, which is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You want your opt-in page to be short, sweet, to the point, simple, etc. You don't want people to have to read for 10 minutes to decide whether to opt in. Again, short attention spans. So you want people to be able to quickly make the decision, which means you're not going to overwhelm them with information. You're going to give them the information they need to make the decision, and that's it. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 214 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I am excited for today's show because we're going to be talking about a subject that I love talking about, which is list building, but we're continuing our kind of series and our series within a series. Now, a few episodes ago, back in episode 211, I think it was, I announced that we were starting a new series called The Inbound Journey. And the Inbound Journey, we're talking about inbound marketing, which is really, as online marketers, that's most of what we do. Now, we should have an outbound marketing strategy, but we also need an inbound strategy, which is really about kind of marketing to people who've raised their hand. It's about getting people to raise their hand and focusing our efforts on talking to those people rather than other people. And there's a lot of components to building an inbound marketing strategy, and list building is a big piece of that. So we're in the midst of kind of a series within a series where we're talking about list building as part of your inbound marketing strategy. In episode 212, we talked about list building basics, including like the most important rule and how to think about list building. Then in episode 213, so last episode, we talked about how to create a stellar lead magnet, a lead magnet that people will love, people will jump to get, etc. Now, in today's episode 214, we're talking about how to create a high converting opt-in page. Because if you don't do this piece right, you're going to struggle. You can have a great freebie, but if you don't have a page that follows some best practices when it comes to getting people to opt in and say, yes, I want that freebie, it's not going to matter how great your freebie is. So we've got to talk about this, and that's what we're going to talk about today in this episode. Now, before we dive in, if you haven't yet, I would love for you to enroll in my completely free program, Badass Online Marketing University. It is a training program filled with courses that are about helping you as an online marketer build your business. And the latest course that we just added is about list building. And so if you like this, if you want to go deeper, if you want a training program, kind of a course that's all about list building, join BOMU and you'll have access to Badass List Building. And it is a course that will help you go deeper in building your list. You can sign up by heading to bobbyklink.com/BOMU, B-O-M-U, bobbyklink.com/BOMU. Now, with that, let's talk about building a high converting opt-in page. And to give you some sense, we're going to talk about three big things here. First, we're going to talk about the single purpose rule. Then we're going to talk about the layout, kind of the general structure and layout for an opt-in page. And finally, we're going to talk about creating good copy, kind of stellar copy for your opt-in page and for the most important parts of it. So let's start with the single purpose rule. And this is something that I want you to get. Your opt-in page is there to do one thing and one thing only. It is to get people to sign up for your email list by downloading that particular freebie. You're presenting a single choice to people. They can either sign up for your list or they can leave. And because of that, because that's the goal, that's what you're trying to do, your opt-in page should be set so that they only have that choice. Either they sign up or they leave. What this means is you don't have a lot of extraneous information on there. You don't have links to other stuff. You don't allow them to do anything other than sign up or leave. That's what you want to be setting your page as. This is kind of the single purpose rule. Now, other people may not use that phrase, but that's what I wanted to use to kind of capture the idea here. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. Number one, there is no standard navigation bar on your opt-in page. If your website has a standard kind of navigation bar, like again, maybe you have a home button, an about us button, a contact button, a work with us button, all of those different things. None of that should appear on your opt-in page because your opt-in page is not about taking them kind of down a journey where they get to choose their own adventure. If you give people that navigation bar, they may say, oh, he's got a podcast. Oh, let me go check out the podcast. And then they forget about the opt-in. Or they may say, I want to learn about it. So they're going to go over there and they're going to forget. They're going to lose where they are. And again, this is the simple fact that hopefully, I definitely know it's true of me. I think I have the attention span a bit more than a goldfish. But I chase shiny objects and I often have something happen where I complete something and I'm like, what was I doing? And I've forgotten, or I don't even think what was I doing. I end up going down kind of these paths and lose my place. And the same thing will happen if you have that navigation bar at the top. Some people will just fall off because they get lost. You don't want that. So no navigation bar. Another piece is you're not going to have any social media links. So don't have links to Facebook, to Instagram, to Twitter, to anything else. Don't have any feeds. Don't have anything about social media that could distract people. Because again, that's giving them choices that could lead them somewhere where they get confused. And we know that social media is built to keep people or to distract people, if you will, and to keep their attention and get it away from you. So if you go down that route, understand you're going to be losing people. So you don't want to do that. So don't have any of that stuff. But just as importantly, you don't have multiple freebies or multiple different opt-ins that people can choose from on a page. No. One opt-in. You have one opt-in that relates specifically to one freebie, and that's the only thing on the page. So again, kind of that's the catch-all rule. I talked about the navigation bar and social settings or social links specifically, but the general rule is the only thing they can do, the only links, the only buttons, the only forms relate to that one freebie and that one freebie only. So that really is kind of the most important rule for an opt-in page. And if you have not done that, if you don't have a single purpose opt-in page, what I'll tell you is this one change will increase conversions considerably, because people won't be distracted. They will know exactly what they're supposed to do. And then they'll simply have a binary choice, yes or no, and you'll start getting more conversion. So that's the single purpose rule. Now let's talk about the opt-in page layout. Now, what I'll tell you is there can be varying levels of complexity to an opt-in page. For example, our BombU sign-up page, if you go to bobbyklink.com/BombU, it doesn't look like a standard opt-in page. And I want to be absolutely clear. Like, among other things, I mean, we have it right now. It's got the navigation bar, et cetera, because it's not right now meant to be a high converting opt-in page. We will probably change that at some point. But even once we do, it will be different than most opt-in pages because it's really more like a sales page. We put it together in a very different way. And the reason why is because it's a much bigger offer. BombU is not a standard freebie. It's not a standard lead magnet. So we have it built more like you would build a sales page with a lot more detail, a lot more information, etc. That is an exception. Most times with your opt-in page, one of the more important rules of business, which is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You want your opt-in page to be short, sweet, to the point, simple, etc. You don't want people to have to read for 10 minutes to decide whether to opt in. Again, short attention spans. So you want people to be able to quickly make the decision, which means you're not going to overwhelm them with information. You're going to give them the information they need to make the decision, and that's it. There's some other pieces here, though. Don't overdo the styling on an opt-in page. Again, you can do all kinds of different things, but the last thing you want is for design and style and any of that stuff to get in the way of people making the decision whether they want to opt in or not. And so keep the style, keep the design very simple on your opt-in pages. That will almost always perform better than complicated. So do that. Other like general things about styling to keep in mind, especially for the stuff that they're going to see at the top of your page. Don't use any kind of handwritten scripted fonts that people might have a tough time reading. I've made that point before. A lot of people don't get this. Like I know cursive, I can read cursive, but understand I have a tough time, and I'm not the only one, like deciphering a lot of these scripted fonts that are available that people use that people think look good. You don't want someone to have to think or have to hesitate to read. You want it to be very simple, etc. That's why you want to use very clear fonts. Your design elements, you don't want to have fonts on top of images that might make it hard to read. Again, keep it simple. A simple, simple background that is just, either a solid color or a gradient with some text on the top of it. That is clear to read text is what you should be going for generally in design elements. Now, with that, I want to talk, though, quickly about kind of differentiating two parts of an opt-in page. And they're not really discrete parts, but there is what's called above the fold and below the fold. This is a kind of terminology from old publishing, like newspaper situations. Above the fold is literally, in the newspaper industry, what appears above the fold. So it's that front page above the fold. The idea is this is the stuff that everyone will see when they come, because just by landing on your page, it will appear. When we refer to that in kind of computer or online language, above the fold is the stuff that will simply render right away. They don't have to scroll to see it. Below the fold is everything else. As you can imagine, you will have more people see above the fold, the information above the fold, than anything else. So you can guess that's probably the most important piece. Another thing I want to talk about here so that you understand and are thinking about this, with opt-in pages especially, you need to be thinking about mobile responsiveness. You need to think about, how is my page going to appear on a mobile device? Oftentimes, what this will mean is that you will create two versions of your opt-in page. You'll have the version that is for people who are visiting on a computer, whether it's a desktop or laptop, and then you'll have your mobile version. And what you'll have to do is you may have to rearrange, or you may have to not show certain parts, but you have to change it because you need to make sure that the most important stuff is at the top, even for mobile users. Now, I have a very weird audience. My audience happens to be predominantly visiting my pages from either a desktop or laptop computer. That makes sense because I market to marketers. So it's people who are, sitting at their desk working most times, seeing the things, and that's how they're visiting my pages. Like I said, that is very weird. In today's day and age, most people in most audiences, at least 2/3 of your visitors to opt-in page and everything else will be for mobile devices. And so that means having that mobile page designed well is critical. If you don't do that, you're going to have a tough time. So you need to make sure you're thinking about that. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about the above the fold section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this kind of in order of importance. But the most important rule for you to get is, if people have to scroll to get the information that they're going to need, or to enter their information to sign up for your freebie, you've done it wrong. People should not have to scroll to sign up, to join your list, to download the freebie. So you don't want them to have to scroll. So that's why the above the fold is so important. Now, we'll walk through the components of above the fold in order of importance. Now, on a desktop, kind of a page built for a computer viewer, they don't necessarily appear in this order, but this is their order of importance. The most important thing is the headline, and this should be at the top. For every page, you should have a headline. Your headline is It's the thing that immediately states the value proposition, what they're going to get, what is the win they're going to get, what is kind of the upside benefit to them of downloading your freebie. So obviously, it's pretty darn important. We're going to talk in a bit about the copy and how to write good headlines, but from a design perspective, your headline should be the thing that people's eyes are immediately drawn to when they land on the page. This means using a larger font, but also a heavier weight font. Now, without getting too detailed, heavier weight tends to have to do with like the width and like how wide the sections are. So you want to do that. So it's kind of bold, etc. But you want to use a big font so that people's eyes are drawn to it. Now, you can do some other minor styling things, but the important concept is when I land on your page, I want to immediately have my eyes go to that headline. It should be a very clear font, easy to read. So make sure that's at the top. Now, the next most important piece is the form to sign up or the button. Now, people have different approaches to this. We now tend to just use a form. We don't use some people will use a button, a kind of a two-step where you click the button to sign up. And then after you click the button, it pops an opt-in form that you fill out the information. Now, the logic behind that is that people click the button saying they want it and they haven't yet had to enter any information. And somehow that's a micro kind of commitment. And once they've done it, they will follow through. So even if they would have been hesitant to enter their information, once they've clicked the button, they're likely to do it. I don't know if that's true. We found that just having the form where they don't have to click twice is much easier and works better. So we tend to include the form itself. But this really is the second most important piece, the form or button, which is your call to action. This is your, hey, enter your stuff here and grab my freebie. Obviously, that's important. Now, you should obviously think about it. It should also be the second most prominent thing. You'll often do this with color, like your opt-in button should be a color that stands out, that kind of draws people's attention. They see it immediately. Often you'll use a bright kind of, color that will stand out. So again, after the headline, this should be the most prominent thing that people see. What I'll talk about now, let me stop before we talk any further. On a mobile page, those will generally be the only things you'll be able to get above the fold. So for the mobile design, you'll often have headline and form, and that's it. And even that, to be clear, a lot of people won't be able to fill out the form and click the button without scrolling a little bit, but you should be able to get the headline and they start filling out the form right there without scrolling. That's going to be all you get above the fold in a mobile device. That's why it's kind of think about that design that way. Now, for a computer screen, the other stuff that will generally appear above the fold, there's two other pieces. One is a description and or bullets. Now, sometimes it'll be, when you grab this, and it's got bullets, but it's either that or a little bit of prose description about what they'll get. To be clear, this is not about features. You don't want to be talking about, well, you're going to get it, and we'll talk about this thing. You're going to get an 8-page PDF. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how do you talk about the benefits a bit more? How do you really kind of get into that a bit more to describe what they're going to get in sense of like how their lives will be better, what the win they're going to get, how are things going to be better because they've done it. Now, we'll talk about how to do that. You can start with the features and turn them into benefits, but the concept is you really want to give them an idea of what it is that kind of how their life will be better by downloading this thing. So that's kind of a either description or bullets. And then the final thing is an image or video. Videos tend not to be something you use as much as an opt-in page. You can try it, but most people wouldn't use a video, but you'll have an image. And an image should be something not of you. It's an image of the freebie that gives it context. So it could be, just an image of the cover of the freebie in like an iPad. It could be, pages fanned out. For some of ours, like on our legal stuff, what we'll have is we kind of have the pages of the template kind of fanned out with content so people can kind of see, okay, what's a document? But then we also have a computer screen with something saying, hey, you're going to get video video tutorials about how to use it. So we do that and use that image to provide context so people know what it is they're getting. If you have a more involved thing, if you're choosing a mini course, you might have some screenshots that shows what they're going to see. You can kind of get a sense. What you use there will depend on the kind of freebie you're offering, but the idea is to give some context because people just like to see what it is that they will be getting. Be careful here. Don't overrepresent things. I'll see this happen with like ebooks. Sometimes people will tell you it's an ebook and, the image makes it look like it's, a full-on book that's 250 pages, and then you download it and it's like, 30 pages. I'm like, what is this? And again, just be careful about that. But use something that gives some context. So that is, in a nutshell, what you'll have above the fold. Headline, the form, the form to fill out, a description or bullets, and an image. That's all you're generally going to be able to fit above the fold, and just design it simply so that stuff, normally you'll have the headline is kind of a full single column all by itself, and then you'll have a section with 2 columns, the image on one side, the descriptions and form on the other side. That's the pretty standard layout for opt-in pages that you've probably seen many times. Now let's talk about what comes kind of below the fold. What else can you include in an opt-in page? Now, first of all, I'll tell you, if you've done above the fold right, you don't really need anything below the fold. You shouldn't need anything beyond that to convert most people. The above the fold is going to have to do the work for about 95% of the people. But you can provide other stuff if you want to. In most cases, again, if you have a complicated, more involved freebie, you're going to want to include more. But for a standard freebie, you really don't need much beyond above the fold. But if you're going to include it, here are some other things you might. If you have a bar of places where you've been featured, if you've been on podcasts, if you've been featured in news articles, people will often have that kind of the featured in or as seen in bar that is about building social proof. It's about saying, hey, this is someone to be listened to because they've been featured in these places that mean something to me. So that's one thing you can include. If you're going to include that, normally it's really right below that above the fold section. You'll put it there because it's just a little thing to give some social proof right away. You can then have a brief bio section. And if you're going to include a bio, normally you'll have an inviting picture of you next to the bio. But the bio, keep it short, understand that. And the bio needs to be specifically related to whatever the freebie is. So in my case, for example, my bio for the legal stuff is different than my bio for kind of Bomb U or for the business stuff, because there's different focuses. Now, it's not like I'm lying, but my bio, I'm as I'm recording this, I'm 43 years old. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but we focus on different things. So in the legal stuff, we obviously focus on the fact that I'm a Harvard Law grad. We focus on kind of my legal background and those types of things, but also mention that I'm, an online entrepreneur, because I think that's part of my credibility here. Now, on the business side, my bio tends to focus more on how I kind of threw out the rule book, how I'm doing things a different way, and that's been successful, because that's largely what I'm trying to sell people. Hey, you want to follow me because I'm taking a different path and I'll take you on it. So again, it's just different focus, and it should relate to whatever it is that you're offering on that page. So that's the bio section if you choose to include one. Then you can have more bullets. You can have an additional section with bullets or description that gives, again, kind of more information about why they need this, about what problem it's going to solve, about how their life's going to be better, etc., about what their struggle is and why this solves it. Again, kind of more conversion copy if you want to. Don't need it, but you can if you want to. And then the last type of thing that you would normally or might have on an opt-in page is testimonials. If you have people who have given testimonials about how great this freebie is, include them. Why not include those on your opt-in page? Because those can be powerful and help people say, hey, this is a good thing, and it's more social proof. So again, for the below the fold, it's kind of your as seen in or featured bar, a brief bio if you want it. More bullets are kind of like about how this solves a problem for them, and then testimonials. And that's about all. You generally would not include anything beyond that to get an example. So that's the content. Now let's move to the last piece, which is, okay, how do you write that content? And I'm not going to focus on the below the fold section. I'm going to focus right now on two things specifically: the headline and bullets. Because again, remember I said, the above the fold stuff has to do 95% of the work. And so spending time on that is an important thing to do. And it's where you're going to get the most bang for the buck. So that's where we want to do it. So let's start with the headline. Now, this needs to basically address the result. It needs to help them understand how their life will be better because they get your freebie. It should generally start with a verb or a verb phrase. Sometimes you'll have like, a descriptor on there, but the idea is that it is a statement about what they get. For example, we have something that says confidently protect your website. That's an opt-in page we have for partners who can sometimes use that if they have a partnership with us to give away some of our templates. And so again, confidently protect, right? So protect there is the verb. Confidently is, I guess it's an adverb. So confidently protect your website. It's giving them a promise. It's telling you that's what this is going to do for you. It's going to allow you to take care of your website. That is a very short, sweet, to the point headline. Now, I'll tell you, oftentimes with my legal stuff, I can have much simpler headlines than most people can because it's that simple. Confidently protect, whatever. And I can kind of, lay that out, and that's all it does. But even on that, I then have a subhead, which you'll often have. But your headline structure will often, if you're not kind of in the weird world that I happen to live in, that I can do this with my legal stuff, you'll often kind of have something where you do something like how to or discover how to, and then you'll describe the result they want without, and then describe what they don't want. So again, something like how, like one example could be how to grow your email list without spending money on ads. I literally made that up on the spot. How to grow your email list. Hey, cool. That's something I want. That's a result I want without having to spend money on ads. I don't want to have to spend money on ads, right? So you can see how you're doing that structure. Now, some people prefer to add discover to the beginning of that how to, discover how to, and that's perfectly fine. That structure will often work well where you're kind of making the promise of what they're going to get and saying without having to do something they don't want. Another little caveat here, if your freebie has a number of steps in it, 5 steps to, and again, this is where we're a bit different. We're not starting with a verb here, but that's okay. 5 steps to, and then, build your email list or get your first 1,000 leads. Something like that. You can see how all of a sudden I'm hitting them. The reason why numbers are important. Now, I've seen some people who will have things like a big number. If I had something that was a bunch of steps, I wouldn't tell people that. What I like is by saying, hey, 3 steps to or 5 steps to, you're telling people that this is going to be digestible, that they're going to be able to get the information, that they're going to be able to understand what they need to do, that they'll be able to really kind of dive in and get the stuff quickly because it's a small number. Normally people say there is magic to the number 3. So if your freebie happens to have 3 steps, definitely start with that so people know that and people understand that that's what they're getting. The idea behind that is you're making clear what they're going to get and that it's not going to be overly complicated because people don't want complicated. So that's what you would kind of do with a headline structure. Again, headline structure is largely that. You can deviate from that structure sometimes, but if you're not to the point yet that you feel comfortable with copywriting, stick to either discover how to or 5 steps to, and then put the result that you're going to help them achieve, the win they're going to get, etc. And then you can say without, and one thing that they don't have to do that they don't want to have to do as part of the process. So that's your headline copy. Now let's talk about bullets. The bullets that you'll include above the fold are often, the point of them is to give a bit more detail. The problem is a lot of people will focus on features. They'll say it's a 72-page PDF or it's 5-part video series. Again, I don't want to burst your bubble, but no one cares how many pages your PDF is, and they definitely don't want to hear that it's long. They'd rather hear that it's short. They really don't care how many lessons are in something. What they care about is the result they're going to get. So if you're going to talk about a feature, we've got to turn it into a benefit. But the big thing is that the description of bullets here should be about the benefit to them. You should focus on the win, on the transformation, on the quick win, on how it's easy, on how it's not going to take a lot of work. That's the theme. Those are the things you want to cover in your bullet. So you should talk about the benefit, but then you should also talk about how it's easy, how it's not going to be hard, how it's going to be simple, all of those things. That is all good content to cover in these bullets. And one way that you can do that is to talk about the feature in this thing. And you say the feature so that, and then you describe the benefit. For example, one way we could do it, and I don't have the copy in front of me, but like for our privacy policy template, when it's a template, it would be something like, it would say something like comes with a video tutorial, so you'll be able to customize it in a matter of minutes and know you've done it right, or something like that. So I'm telling them what it comes with. It comes with a video testimonial, but then I'm giving it meaning. Why do they care about the video tutorial? I think I said testimonial, but why do they care about the video tutorial? Well, because it makes it simple for them to customize it, and they'll know they customized it right. So you can see how what I've done is I talk about the feature, but then give meaning in a way that will matter to them. That's how you structure things. That's how you can take what would otherwise simply be a feature of your freebie and turn it into a benefit. So again, if you had something that was a freebie that would take 5 minutes a day, and that's it. Like I'm thinking of someone in my coaching program who has a freebie that's about breathing practices or meditation practices. And you could say, you could say something, each practice is 5 minutes or less, so it doesn't have to overwhelm the rest of your day or something like that. Again, I'm just making this up on the fly, but you can see how the fact that it's short is the feature. The benefit is that means this doesn't have to be something that is overwhelming, that takes up all your time. That's kind of how you want to structure these things so that you're really leaning into what does it mean? What is the benefit for your people? So again, your bullets will often focus on that. It will kind of take a feature and turn it into a benefit. And the benefit needs to be the quick win. It's easy to use, etc. So that's how you create those bullet points. So now I'm going to wrap this episode up, and we're kind of wrapping up our series on list building, but we've covered here in this lesson, or not in this lesson, in this episode, the general kind of concept of the single purpose rule. Your opt-in page has one purpose, and they have to decide whether to opt in or not. That's their only choice. We talked about the layout and how the above the fold section is the most important piece, and how you need to make sure that what's above the fold on kind of a computer screen, but also on a mobile device is optimized. And then we talked about how to create that stuff specifically. So that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this mini series on list building. Next up, in the next week's episode, we're going to be talking about what to do once you're on your list. We're going to talk about email marketing and how email marketing fits into the journey that people are on. So I will see you next week. Until then, enjoy your week. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.